welcome. Thank you so much for being here, Nader. Nader Tohamy is the head of the Manzil Realty Group, which is a values-based real estate company in Canada, serving Canadians all across the country. Nader has 7 years of experience in real estate and has a deep understanding of halal financing. He's helped Muslim families across Canada get homes with halal financing. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm excited to be here just as much as you are. I mean, the cat's going to be out of the bag pretty soon about what we have coming for the Quebec market, but we'll keep that on the wraps for another time, inshallah.
Inshallah. No, I'm very, very excited. So I want to start right off the bat. What kind of inspired you to start Manzil Realty?
Honestly, it wasn't really anything inspiration. It kind of happened by accident, to be honest. So it all happened, I guess, when I first got into real estate after a couple of years. I approached Sheikh Mustafa Khattab, who everybody knows as the author of the Clear Quran. And at that time, he was the imam at the Anatolia Islamic Center. So I approached him and I told him, hey, can we make a video about halal financing options for Muslims and whether or not they should be going for bank mortgages? Because a lot of people were using the Qaradawi fatwa, which technically allows Muslims to buy homes in the West with traditional financing. So he said, you know what, there's this conference that's going to be in town. It's the AMJA conference, which is the American Muslim Jurists Association. They're going to be in town. So how about we go and we update our information? So I said, okay, cool. Little did I know that this conference was going to change a lot of things for me. It literally opened up my eyes to Islamic finance because the whole session was all around Islamic finance. And apparently it's not like an every year thing. Every year they have different topics that they cover. And this year just happened to be Islamic finance. So there was a lot of scholars with a lot of knowledge that focused solely on Islamic finance. And when they got to the part of the mortgages, so basically Sheikh Salah Sawi kept saying, this is haram, and this is haram, and this is haram. And then I take a look at Mustafa Khattab, and he's just like, okay, we updated our information, so no need to make any videos anymore about the Qara fatwa, because apparently it's not a good fatwa to use. And a lot of the time when people do refer back to this fatwa, they ignore an important facet of what is applicable to this fatwa, and it's the necessity. So unless there's a need for something for you that would deem it as being necessary, this necessitates a lot of stuff from an Islamic perspective where you can transgress to do something that's haram for survival. And for you to be able to get that survival fatwa for you to apply for a mortgage, it's completely possible for you to survive with a rental. So it makes it very difficult unless there's specific situations. Like, for example, if there's a large family, it's very hard for them to find a property to rent because a lot of the time landlords don't like having a lot of people in the house. And we know a lot of families that have 6 or 7 or 8 kids. So it's very hard for them to get these rentals, right? So for them, a fatwa could probably work for them. But again, it's all dependent on someone's personal situation. It's not like a blanket mortgage, right? And it's only available for your primary residence. It's not available for investments, right? So a lot of people just use it as a blanket mortgage fatwa where we're in the West, we can go to the bank, which is not the case. Anyways, I think I'm going a little bit off track, but that conference opened up my eyes to a lot of things. And what it opened up my eyes to the most was there is an Islamic finance world. So a lot of the stuff I was invested in is completely haram, and I had no idea about it. And when I continued to go into this rabbit hole of Islamic finance, we all of a sudden got hit with COVID. So now business is going down because the main lead generation technique for me was door knocking. All of a sudden you can't go within X number of feet of people just so you can not get them sick or you catch anything. Basically business went to a halt. So this is what motivated me to start actively posting on social media. So when I started posting on social media, I wanted to do something that would be good for my dunya and akhirah, not just so random dancing videos on TikTok or anything. So I thought Islamic finance was something that not a lot of people know about. If I've been living in this country for all of my life, what's the probability that a lot of other people who are, the same as I am don't even have a clue about this? So I started making videos about Islamic finance and how to invest as a Muslim. And I honestly didn't think it would take off as much as it did. Fast forward a year to like when I finally got like a decent following, I was recognized by Manzil. I was initially approached by the CMO at the time, Osama al-Sharafa. A lot of people know him now as the Muslim Hub Clubs. He's a character by himself. Like, I mean, you're just starting to see that now, but he's always been this way. So he approached me. He said, hey, we love your videos. We love the salams and all that stuff. So how about you come and take over the Manzil socials for a week? I said, okay, that would be cool. So a whole week, I took over their socials. I was making videos for them for the whole week. I was answering their DMs actually as well. And it was funny too, because like they were like, hey, we'll pay you like $250 to do this. We don't have a lot of money. We don't have a lot of marketing budget. Like Muhammad was just telling you here, we have like a zero marketing budget, which is true. So I said, no, it's okay. It's cool. Like, I mean, for me, it's more about getting the information out there. After the week ended, it was like wildly successful with the amount of attraction that we generated. Osama was like, hey, the CEO wants to sit down with you. I'm like, okay. So this is when I first met Muhammad. We met him over at the Tawheed Community Center. There was like some bazaar and Manzil had a booth there. So I started talking with Muhammad. I introduced myself. At that time, he wasn't like Muhammad to me now. When you're approaching someone who's like a CEO, it's got like this aura and stuff. But like we're like very tight right now. So I mean, we've gotten past all of this. So he asked me, are you in real estate? And I said, yes, I am. It's like, well, I'd love to talk to you about an opportunity. I was like, great. So we scheduled an appointment a few weeks later, and he approached me about being a broker of record for a Manzil Realty brokerage. And he had interviewed a couple of other like agents as well who were like, yeah, I can do this. I can definitely take over. The main issue with having your own brokerage is that there's a lot of capital and resources and licensing and red tape. And there's so much that's in there that would be like more of a hurdle to continue as your own brokerage rather than just tying yourself up to like a brokerage that's already existing, that already has a broker record, that's getting paid six figures, that has their own like regulatory like staff that fulfills all the requirements of the regulations so that they're all in compliance. So I told him, you know what, that would be a horrible idea, especially you guys don't have even any money right now. Like at that time, they only had like 6 houses funded, right? This was back in 2021. So I told him, hey, I mean, if like the whole idea is being able to leverage your brand and being able to capitalize on, you know, the leads that you have and the generation there, I could literally just brand Men's Team at my brokerage right now and we can get started. So Muhammad was like, really? You can do that? How quickly does that happen? Pull out my phone, I call my broker a record. It's like, hey, I'm starting a team. He's like, okay, cool, done. We're ready to go. And that's how Manzil Realty was kind of born. Within 6 months from that point, we launched as Manzil Realty at Royal LePage Signature. So honestly, it just happened by accident. It wasn't more of a intentional process, but when you do things for the sake of Allah, Allah opens a lot of doors. SubhanAllah, at that time, it's probably at the lowest part of my real estate career where there's no deals coming, where there's no income, we're just recovering from COVID. People will yell at you as a realtor for knocking on their door and it's like, how dare you try to sell my house at this time? Having this opportunity to work with Muslims, for me, I saw the vision. I said, you know what, this is going to be something big, even though there wasn't the money that was there at the time. And the funny thing is that when they approached other realtors, they were okay with being a broker of record. They're like, okay, I can do it. But any realtor will tell you that when you go to a brokerage where their broker of record is actively selling, it's not a good brokerage. You definitely want to have just someone there to be able to do all the regulatory stuff for you and not be involved in the day-to-day of the selling. Because there's a lot of responsibilities for an active broker of record, especially there's supposed to be a value add to give to these realtors that you're going to be bringing onto your team and your brokerage. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. It's not a sustainable business model. So with that being said, I took a risk with jumping in full in with Manzil. And once we branded Manzil Realty, we had about 3 transactions till the end of the year. The following year, we had about 15. And then 2024, which was last year, was probably our best year where we had over 60 transactions and we had over 50 million in real estate funded. So alhamdulillah, now the Manzil Mortgage Fund has grown over to fund 150 some odd houses in Ontario, Alberta, and BC, soon to be Quebec, inshallah. And they've deployed about 100 million in capital against almost 200 million dollars in equity in terms of the equity of the price of the home. So it's almost like a 50% LTV. Investors are happy; they're getting a good return. Clients are happy; they've been renting and they're exclusively now homeowners for the first time, which is empowering our community and adding wealth to our community. And me being a huge part of this, is it a huge blessing? I always take a look at it as a sadaqah jariyah at the end of the day. Not only am I benefiting the clients that I work with in their dunya, which is, achieving financial freedom eventually, it's also helping build their akhirah, because now they can go in front of Allah and said, I did everything that I could and I was a part of this. And it makes it that much more rewarding working with our community.
I completely agree. I think, you touched on how this Manzil Mortgage Fund, right? Like just practically speaking. So how this Manzil Mortgage Fund has this funding and this is what has allowed you to go out and sort of do more deals. Are you able to kind of explain in very simple terms what that relationship is between the Manzil Mortgage Fund and the financing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main product that Manzil uses for their financing is the musharaka, which is the partnership. So essentially, we set up a partnership structure in a limited partnership where there's general partners involved. So the Manzil Mortgage Fund is one of those partners that's going to be in the limited partnership. And the clients will be the other partners, right? And generally it's the husband and the wife who are going to be in that partnership. So technically speaking, the mortgage fund is the third party that's going to be the partner. So they're more of a silent partner, but they actually do take on risk of ownership, which is not something that you would see at a traditional bank. When you think about it at the end of the day, this is probably the most Islamic way to be able to get something for the community without being able to do like some third party stuff that you see at other like Islamic lenders, right? And that's why I'm calling them lenders, because that's what they are, right? They're using third party accounts to be able to help take away the haram and give it to the client. They don't take any risk when they give the financing to the clients. Whereas Manzil, they're your actual partner, they're a financing partner. So you kind of don't want to think of Manzil as a bank. You want to think of them as another person that you're getting involved to add their money to the account and to be able to help purchase the house.
And I think it's so important to understand that relationship because it also helps Muslims in Canada understand that you can invest in this Manzil Mortgage Fund. And I know it says Manzil Mortgage Fund, which sometimes people feel uncomfortable or they think that they're investing in mortgages. But what you're actually doing is you're investing in a fund that's being used to help Muslim families buy homes without interest. And so it's important to realize that not only does this allow Muslims in Canada to earn a little bit of money on their savings, but it's also helping us provide homes for more Muslim families and making halal mortgages more accessible.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, the Manzil Mortgage Fund is literally the only fund of its kind in Canada, which is a low risk fund that earns you a yield of like over 5%, right? Fun fact though, like the word mortgage itself, do you know like what the origins of the word mortgage is?
I have no idea.
So basically, when you translate it back to its Latin origins, basically translate to death contract. So when you think of a mortgage, it's like it's one of those things like death and taxes. Like you're basically like signing your life away. That's exactly what a mortgage is, right? Like I'm sure like in French, mort, like it's like
true.
Dead, right? So
Yep.
that's kind of like where the origin of it comes from. So it's totally understandable that there's always flack when you hear the word mortgage. It's not technically what it is. It's just the best way for our clients to understand what the product will achieve. At the end of the day, it's an actual partnership. It's a business relationship. So Manzil enters as a silent partner. You get exclusive use of the property. They sell you back the shares that's in their ownership at a profit, and you can pay it off at any time without any penalties like you would at a bank. So at the end of the day, like even though like the numbers might be a little bit more or similar, depending on whatever it is, it's not the same product at the end of the day. It's actually much better than what like banks will offer you because they want to make their money and they don't care whether or not like, you can make your payments or not. This is one of the main differences in a halal mortgage. So a lot of the time when I have these conversations with clients, especially the ones who are on the fence about whether or not to go with a halal mortgage, a lot of this stuff that's, again, I'm going to use the word intentional on purpose. that is like completely thought through to help establish the essence of what a Sharia compliant product would be, which is supposed to be fair and equal to all parties involved.
No, it's very, very important. I think so. Now, what we've described of this Manzil mortgage fund and this financing, this structure is what exists on the Manzil side. And so on the other side, we have Manzil Realty. I think it's important for people to understand the difference because when you do go to buy a home, there's a process. And so the initial process is going to be the financing component, figuring out how much you can be approved for, which would be what we've described of this partnership and this sort of submitting documents. And that's on the Manzil side. Manzil Realty, what you offer is something that goes, I think, to the next step, which is now you have a team of Muslim realtors who understand this structure and understand these values and are able to guide you through the next part of the process in buying a home. So I kind of wanted to ask you, why is it so important if somebody's looking for halal financing? Why do they need a Muslim realtor? Why do they need someone from your team?
Well, let me try to restructure that in a different way. Because again, like our team, 90% of us are Muslim. We do have like some non-Muslim agents on our team. And the most important thing is that they get it, right? This is the biggest difference between somebody who is just got commission breath and wants to get like another deal, regardless of what the outcome is for the client, versus someone who understands what this family is looking for, what their needs are. So just the fact that we're similar in terms of culture, it's no different than somebody who wants to work with someone who can speak their mother tongue or is from the same country culturally, because they get it, right? They know what they want. So I could tell you without a shadow of a doubt, like what our typical Manzil client looks like. They want to buy the biggest and best property that they can. They want to get rental potential from their basements, want to live within walking distance to a masjid, right? So these are all things that are on their checklists, right? Sure, you can teach that to non-Muslim realtors, and we've done that for some of our team members, but it's extremely important that you have this mindset going in. And you also have to understand that not only is it just the culture side of things that you need to get, but the business side of things and how it applies to our current system, because halal mortgages are completely different than a traditional mortgage. And there's so many different things that it might seem like it's something that's very little, but it can make a huge impact if somebody doesn't even go with a realtor who's been trained specifically for our product. At the end of the day, when it comes to clients who use us at Manzil Realty, I like to say we're a white glove like service, right? So from A to Z, and like they don't really have to worry about anything except for focusing on the search and doing what's best for their family. And like any other agent out there who's like worth their salt, they put the client's needs first, because this is a customer-based business, right? It's all about finding people who like you, love you, and trust you. Like this is what my first broker record like taught me. He's like, you're never going to get any business if you don't have someone who likes you, someone who loves you, and someone who trusts you. Now, like when you say like and love, like it's supposed to be the same thing. But I could tell you, like a lot of the time my wife says, hey, I love you, but I just don't like you right now. So you have to have this all kind of like working for you at the same time. And a lot of the time, other realtors that are in the market, like in my home market in Toronto, we have over 70,000 realtors that are registered, but only 5% of realtors are the ones that are doing 90% of the transactions. So what is the value add at this point for all these other realtors? And a lot of the time what I find our clients falling prey to is that they fall in love with the fact that they're going to be getting some cash back from these realtors, which that's their only value add. But if they're getting like, say, like, half of their commission, like what does that say about their negotiation skills? What does that say about you being able to make sure that you're getting the right home for you and for your family? What does that say about small things like maybe I could, as a fully like licensed full-time agent, able to negotiate way more off of the price of the house than you're able to get from like this maybe 3, 4, or 5,000 that you're going to be getting back as a commission, a kickback from the realtor. So it's very important that not only clients who are looking for a halal mortgage, clients who are looking for any home purchase to really choose the professional that they're working with based on what they believe compared to what they can get from like a monetary perspective.
It's very true, actually. And I remember when my first property that I purchased was with a broker. And I remember there are different things that I just hadn't thought of, even in terms of dates, in terms of financing, in terms of, how much I could get in rental income, different numbers. They were things that I just didn't have the experience to even think about those things. And when I went to buy my second property, it was a no-brainer. I went with the same agent and I bought just before COVID. And I remember how much time he put into finding properties, showing up. He was going to showings that I couldn't make it to. And ultimately, like, alhamdulillah, he got us the exact property that we were looking for. And I know that we would never have been able to buy during that time if we had tried to do it on our own, or if we had gone with somebody that wasn't as skilled. And so I think it's hard for people to understand the value when you've never gone through the process before, but you have to consider that for most people, this is the largest transaction of your life. And I have seen horror stories of things where the inspector didn't find the right things, or, there are different developments that happen in that neighborhood that end up reducing the value of your property significantly. And so it's so important to have somebody that has that experience.
Absolutely. Like, even like a seasoned agent like myself, you're always going to have these issues. Like, everything can go right on paper and then something goes wrong. Like, I recently had a closing where we did the inspection, we checked everything out, and then they wanted to, renovate one of the rooms. And the minute they opened up the walls, they found mold, right? There's only so much that you can do at the end of the day, and liability is limited unless, the seller like actively like knew about it and covered it up. But even in that instance, you can't really do anything about it unless you take them to court, right? And try to sue them for like damages, which would be successful down the line, but it's just extra stress and stuff. And to your point, like, a lot of the time with our clients, they've never had to buy a house. They've always been like serial renters, right? So for them, the process is like extremely eye-opening, scary, and we've been trained to be able to assist in all of these facets, right? Because like I said, it's a customer-based service first. I'm not calling you to say like, hey, like, what did you think of that house? How about we put an offer on it? I'm calling to say, hey, assalamu alaikum, how's the family? How'd you guys do last night? How are the kids? And then like we try to get that organic relationship to kind of work like you're working with someone from your family. And a lot of the time, alhamdulillah, like I want to say like 90% of the clients that I've worked with, I would consider like close personal friends now, and they treat me the same. We're always messaging on WhatsApp. I'd like send them voice notes during Eids, like kids' birthdays, like, all that stuff. And it's amazing because like we're building a community within the community. Like, not only are they part of the men's family, they're now a part of my extended family. And it's really amazing with all the different areas that we service. Like, I can point and say like, hey, I have like close family members now in the GTA and in London and in Windsor and in Ottawa and in Calgary and in Edmonton and now in like Vancouver and Surrey. So alhamdulillah, like there's, and soon to be like Montreal, right? So it's a huge blessing to be able to be put in a position where we can actually assist the community in this way.
It's very true. And it really helps us position ourselves differently once we have that ownership, once we're able to sort of get into this market of buying property. I wanted to ask you, so we have this idea of halal financing. Practically speaking, what does the process look like for somebody who wants to buy a property?
So it'd be no different than if you're buying a property that's like not using like a halal product, right? So the first and foremost, you definitely need to know how much you're able to finance. It's like going to the mall without your wallet. Like you need to know how much you have to spend. And again, at the end of the day, just having your card on like your phone and tapping, like you're not like being intentional about it, right? So obviously the first step is being able to get a pre-approval. And that's what we do at Manzil. And even like Manzil's screening process is probably more strict than other banks, right? Because again, they're taking on more risk in their product. The next step for us, at least, is to determine a funding date, because unlike other banks, we have a limited amount of funding and we can make sure that we have funding during that time to be able to deploy it. But once you have your pre-approval set, now you can start shopping for homes in your budget. And working with a professional realtor will help you get to that point faster. What happens these days is a lot of the time houses are marketed well below the market value of the property. And this is done on purpose to try to generate multiple offers. And some agents don't know any better, and some clients don't know any better. They think that that's actually what the clients want, right? And what that ends up doing is it just generates multiple offers that are low, but because there's no disclosure of what the substance is of those offers, it kind of forces people who are interested, who know what the actual value is, to drive the price up of that property. So it could be a really frustrating process. A lot of the time I'll deal with clients and they'll tell me like, hey, it's listed for $499. Why don't we put in $480? Like, well, because the exact same model just sold for $620. So if you want to have a shot, we should at least try to put 600 and see how it goes. Like, why would I put 600 and it's listed for $499? And then all of a sudden they see the final sale price is like $675. It went way above like what we were expecting because of the interest that it was generated for. So working with a professional will help reduce the amount of time that it will take for you to get to that final home. It's all about us being able to educate the client so that they can make the best decisions for them and for their family. And again, we're not being pushy or anything, but we understand what the reality is of the market. Because if you aren't able to transact today, then tomorrow is going to be much harder to do it. Like a lot of the time we say like the best time to buy real estate was yesterday, right? Even like during the times where the market was up and it went down, real estate is a long game. It's not like your stock portfolio, you're taking a look at it and on the daily and you're seeing it go up and down. It's all about that long-term growth that you get at the end of the day. Once we're able to find the property, and we were successful in putting an offer forward. And again, it's important with our Muslim clients who are working with us, who are getting financing from Manzil, we have clauses that don't sit right with sellers at the end of the day, who've never seen these clauses before, that will allow us to fund the property in a Sharia compliant fashion. So for the professional that they're dealing with to be able to communicate to the other side can cost them a deal. And it's happened in the past when other realtors were involved. That's why like Manzil decided to, hey, like we want all of this now in-house, because a lot of the clients were losing out on properties because no one's able to like, explain, what it is. And when you have like these realtors who are giving clients cash back, they're just like, oh, I don't know. It's just because they're using a Muslim like bank or something, right? So it's extremely important to be able to communicate that during the offer process, because it can cost your clients a home that pretty much checks off all their boxes, but the sellers aren't comfortable with taking on that quote unquote risk, even though there is no risk for them. And then it just goes into the closing process. So a lot of the time, once we get an offer accepted, people just don't know what to do. They're just like, so what's next? And I'm like, don't worry, just stay like put. What will happen is like, I'll send like the deal over to the lawyers. I'll send the deal over to Manzil. They'll get the commitment ready. The lawyers will get like the final process ready. And again, it's also important for our clients to use the lawyers that we've contracted, because not any real estate lawyer can close Manzil's type of deal. Like not only do we have a real estate component to the transaction, we also have a limited partnership component to the transaction, and we also have the independent legal advice portion of the transaction. So it's extremely important that you're dealing with professionals who've seen this product before and can navigate any issues that come up, because there's always issues that come up like around closing that have nothing to do with Manzil or the real estate. There could be a delay in funding, not from Manzil though, but if you're using a bank, sometimes it could be delayed. Or on the other side, if the sellers have to discharge a mortgage from the other side so that we can register the title on the property, the bank that's holding the title might drag their feet with giving them a payout statement so that they can send them the funds so that they can discharge it. So there's a lot of things that can happen on the closing day, which is why I personally don't like to have any closings on Friday, because if something drags on and it gets pushed to the next business day, you're looking at Monday, and sometimes on a long weekend, you're looking on Tuesday before you're able to get something done. And some clients are literally sitting with a moving truck outside the house just waiting for the closing to finish so that they can get the keys and go in. So we've had a couple of like, hairy situations that have happened with, again, we say qadar Allah, but once that's been completed, they get to enjoy the benefit of being homeowners, maybe for the first time. And that's the process in a nutshell.
No, it makes a lot of sense. So it starts and it ends with Manzil. So for somebody who wants to go in and get a mortgage or a halal mortgage with Manzil, they start with the financing process, applying, figuring out how much they can actually get approved for. And then they would transition and start working with a broker at Manzil Realty who's going to help them find the house that ticks all of their boxes. And then it goes into this legal process of setting up everything that was agreed upon in that initial sort of application for financing. Is that
That's correct.
So I think that helps. If somebody was wanting to start the process, they would have to start with that Manzil financing component.
Absolutely. That's the first component of any real estate transaction is you want to know how much you can purchase, right? Like you want to know, like even sometimes if clients can be fully committed to what the financing would look like on their end, they might not want to use all that financing. They might not be comfortable with the monthly payments. So at least when they have that information, they can determine exactly what their budget should be. And then we can take a look at properties in that. And a lot of the time when that happens, once they get started, they'll say like, you know what, I like the properties in the higher price range. How about let's go take a look at these instead? So
This is very true. Very, very true. It's helpful to have like an idea of what that budget is before you jump in.
absolutely.
No, I think that's very helpful. And I think that's helpful for people to understand what the process is actually going to look like, even in terms of time frame, to understand that this isn't something where you're going to start today and have a house in a couple of weeks. There is a process. And so to kind of manage everyone's expectations around what it looks like.
Absolutely.
Nader, thank you so much for coming and for
Barakallah
speaking
fiki.
and for sharing and for explaining the process and for everything that you do for our community. I think that your dedication to just the doing everything in such a high standard makes such a big difference in the way that you execute all of these transactions and that Manzil Realty is growing. So thank you.
I appreciate you having me here today. Jazakumullah khair.
No, it's my pleasure. Jazakallah.